Just turn this off real quick. All right, and we are recording. All right, how's it going, everybody? We're here for another episode of Atheist Testimonials. Today, we are here with Eddie, and in these testimonials, we're going through the lens of being a black atheist, of course. How you grew up in a religious society, how you became atheist if you were never were one before, and how that affected your daily life, family, dating, etc., and of course, politics as well. Now, like I said, we do have Eddie. I appreciate you being here with me. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, who you are, what you do, etc.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eddie Williams. I'm currently working in cybersecurity. Husband, father, grew up in Mississippi.
MISSISSIPPI. I
Yes,
remember
sir.
that from school.
Crooked letter, crooked letter. You better
Yeah,
believe it. Jackson State
pick it up, pick
University,
it
sound
up.
of the boom of the South. The I
Uh,
love.
yeah, man. I love P Valley, so yeah, I still got that song in my head.
I never seen that show, but I hear good things about it.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely check it out. Definitely check it out. All right, man. Like we said, I appreciate you being here. So you grew up in Mississippi, and you are currently a cybersecurity expert. Let me ask you, growing up in Mississippi, was it also highly religious? I grew up in Florida around West
Okay.
Indians.
Yeah, yeah, I
Highly
see.
religious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, so growing up in Mississippi, it's it's steeped in religion.
Mhm,
And when I say steeped, I mean it's permeative to the point where it's in the air and it's in the background. There are, of course, a lot of overt, you know, religious, social mores. There's churches on not every corner, but you know, churches everywhere. Basically, I
mhm,
grew up in a relatively small town called Vicksburg on the river, right between Louisiana and Mississippi. But yeah, churches, lots. Pretty much every one of my family members religious. You know, we had several Baptist churches that we would go to. My mother was not from there. She was from Chicago. She grew up Catholic. My
mhm.
father was from Vicksburg. They met when he was in the Navy, so we all moved back there. But yeah, growing up, lots of religious themes throughout school. You know, the prayer before every football game. Um, I played football, so we prayed before every football game. You know,
Yeah, I had kind of the same experience. A lot of people will think that growing up in South Florida or Florida itself is not really the Bible Belt, but I tell people this all the time. This is still very much the Bible Belt,
oh,
especially
absolutely,
since we have a lot of people from the West Indies here, lots of Cubans who are
right,
Catholic. You know what I mean? Like half the black people here are Haitian, so it's
right,
very a religious society.
right.
Very much so. What actually? So you grew up pretty much religious. Did you grow up in in a Baptist church, non-denominational, Church of God? I know there's a bunch of
There's
denominations.
a whole bunch. So I've never been religious.
Mhm,
Um, I I don't think I truly considered myself completely atheist until I was probably a teenager, but I never in my life really believed in that stuff, and I'll kind of tell you why. Like I said, my mother was a Catholic. She grew up in a relatively strict Catholic upbringing in Chicago.
mhm,
Once we came to Mississippi, she became what would probably be known as a seeker. She tried a bunch of different religions.
mhm,
Um, I think everything but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, right? She tried Seventh Day Adventist, which my one of my aunts also tried. She
mhm.
tried Baptist. She tried maybe Methodist. She tried what's the one Michael Jackson and Prince were?
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, she tried that one. They actually came to our house one morning on Christmas, and me being a little kid, I said, "Hey, Merry Christmas," and they just looked at me like I had spit on their shoes or something. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, that between that and the fact that my mother valued education, um, I read everything from Dr. Seuss to Shakespeare to Angela Davis when I was growing up. Lots of black authors, so lots of science fiction, lots of anatomical, like Grey's Anatomy type books. I have one called ABCs of the Human Body. So I had a huge influx of peer-reviewed knowledge,
Mhm,
culture, even though I was barefoot, poor, black, and ugly growing up in Mississippi, deep in the South in the Bible Belt. So I was never really. interested in more than an academic sense in a lot of that stuff in the first place. And the fact that my mother, who grew up relatively strictly Catholic, never really made us go to church. And even though my peers, my age group, they were really interested in it, and that's because that's what they were. And I kind of, as a semi-transplant, we lived in Japan and California before. It's just wasn't part of my culture. I fit in. I could
Mhm,
definitely sing the song. We would sing "Silver and Gold" on the back of the bus. You know what I mean? Going back and forth to school and other hymns and whatnot. I'd go to church with my uncles and aunts. That was one of the prerequisites of going out till 2 o'clock in the morning. My uncle Larry would say, "Hey, I don't give a damn what time y'all come back in, but you better have your suit on and
mhm,
your socks and shoes, because at 7:30 this truck's pulling out and y'all gonna be in it." So
mhm,
I'm like, all right, cool. It didn't really bother me, but other than sitting there in church for like 2, 3 hours at a time, and then afterwards trying to wait in a hot car while the old adults were talking to preachers and catching up with everybody. So
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's, almost my story. Like, I was interested in it in an academic sense, but
right.
I was also, like, really into it because, my dad was a pastor, my mom preached all the time, so yeah, so
Okay.
I really got into it. So
Right.
it's always interesting to hear, um, Black people who were actually never really religious like that, never really believed. Let me ask you, did you kinda believe it, or it was something that you just didn't think of? It was just a feature of the day of your universe?
I never really believed it. So my father, he had like that old family Bible. It had like a weird, I don't know if you remember, like a magic eye, almost kind of one of those plastic panels that is like ridged.
Yep,
If you turn it one way, it has one scene. If you turn the other way, it has another
that's
scene.
another thing. Mhm,
Right. So we had one of those sitting on the dining or coffee table in the living room for a while,
mhm,
and it very well illustrated, gilded pages, all that good stuff. Um, and I'd read through it, but I'd ask him a lot of questions, even when I was young. So like 5, 6, 7 years old, he'd be sitting on the floor in front of the couch, leaning on the couch. I'd be sitting on the floor with this Bible in my hand. I'd ask him stories about, if God knows everything, then, why are we praying? Those types of questions.
mhm,
And one answer he gave me, I'll say no, almost none of the answers he gave me were satisfactory for for even my age at the time.
right,
And even when he was in the Navy, I don't know how much he was paid, but turns out he was also an encyclopedia salesman.
mhm,
So I kind of think it was almost his fault in a lot of ways that it never really stuck, because not only did I have this Bible to read through, but I had the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, all about marine biology and different tales of the sea, like the Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, Greek mythology, Poseidon, even different Western African tales.
mhm,
Uh, and the Disney Wide World of Knowledge, which had a lot of the same type of stuff that he was selling to make extra money, of course. But I mean, back in those days, you got a full set of the encyclopedias, and my older sister, especially, and I would just read through them. They were well illustrated, and again, we didn't really have a bunch of TV, so. But yeah, asking those types of questions when I was young kind of made sure that I never really fell into that trap. I feel like I was caught in the perfect storm to never become religious.
mhm. That's that's actually dope, man. I mean,
I was happy about it. In
yeah.
hindsight, of course.
Yeah. My parents grew up, I mean, my parents aren't were in the religious field. I mean, not the religious, the medical field,
Right,
so same thing. We had Grey's Anatomies books everywhere. So I was
right,
always kind of like academically inclined, but that was the part they told me to never question. Yeah, I mean, it was
right,
really weird. And I think the first question I had that probably started me on this journey, the first question I had was, where did Cain's wife come from? That was
right,
the first
right,
question I had.
right,
I still remember that. I think that I was probably, like, around 8, 9 years old, and I asked my parents, "Where did Cain's wife come from?" You know,
right,
because I knew it was, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Abel died,
right, 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 right,
and then Cain went somewhere, and then he found a wife, and that was the first question I had. Where did Cain's wife come from?
right,
So, yeah, that's pretty dope. So you said that you didn't really consider yourself an atheist until, like, around your teenage years, correct?
right. And I guess when I say I didn't consider myself an atheist, I didn't really use that term.
Mhm.
because even young, again, it's not like I was ever even really interested other than, yep, when somebody sneezes,
Mhm.
I say bless you. At
Still say
this
bless
point,
you.
it's
Mhm.
built into the fabric of our society.
Mhm.
It's not as if I'm literally asking a deity to give the person who just sneezed and almost coughed out a spirit good health. No, it's simply what you say, right? And that's how most religious things have been to me pretty much most of my life. And going back to Bible stories, um, part of the reason for that is your first really questioning session was around Cain's wife. One of my biggest ones, I could actually directly verify that it wasn't, or indirectly verify that it wasn't true, because one of my biggest ones was Jonah and the whale, right?
Run the well, yeah.
Remember, I had the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, where it tells
Mhm.
you and it shows pictures and diagrams of entire whales, from sperm whales, the spermaceti organ, all of
Mhm.
that stuff. Blue whales, the biggest whale on the planet, the blue whale, couldn't swallow a person. So
Mhm.
when I see the illustration of a grown man sitting inside the belly of a fish or whale or whatever, but then I read this other book that says, well, whales' throats are too small. They can filter out krill. Most of them have baleen and blah 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 blah. So
Mhm.
those types of things directly contradicted. So I treated it more like I did a lot of the Greek mythology, right?
Mhm.
So I read a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's not like I believe there was a old man with a beard sitting on a cloud throwing lightning bolts out of the sky, literally doing that. So I mean, okay, cool. We got a book and we center our lives, or many aspects of our lives around that. We pray before eating. Okay, I can do that. I can bow my head and close my eyes. I don't give a shit. I'm still
Yeah.
gonna get fed at the end of it, right? So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And as you say that, like, I kind of when people tell me how I view, when people ask me how I view, like, religions and stuff now, I tell them the same thing. The same way that you view the Iliad, I mean, or the
right,
Odyssey, Homer.
exactly,
Because we know that the Battle of Troy actually happened, and we
correct,
know that the Kingdom of Israel probably did exist. We have archaeological evidence of that. But did David actually, slay a giant person? Probably
right,
no. I mean,
right,
David was probably as short as me, about 5'5", and Goliath was like 6'7". So
right, right,
around that time, of course, he'll be considered a giant.
right.
So
Yeah,
it's
could a dude throw a rock and knock somebody out? That's possible. That's
possible. Yeah.
relatively plausible, I guess. But yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think one of my big things I liken it to is not only the Odyssey, the Iliad, the stories of Enkidu, Anansi, things like that, right? Yeah,
Mhm,
did a lot of these places, did ancient Sumeria exist? Yeah, but I
mhm,
also bring it to the forefront, in a more modern geographical and temporal landscape, right? So
mhm,
New York is a real place.
mhm,
Been there before. Stayed in a few of the buildings plenty of times, right? I've
mhm.
eaten there. Spider-Man, however, is not. Is there a dude named
Right.
Peter Parker that lives in New York, Bronx, where Hell's Kitchen, wherever you're supposed to have lived?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can flip through a phone book and find a man named Peter Parker who lived there. But does that mean that at night he puts on a red and blue costume and goes web slinging? No, you know.
Right. Exactly.
If he does, okay, cool, but you're gonna have to give me more empirical evidence than that than a comic book that's illustrated. You're gonna have to show me the guy, man.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to show me the smoking gun. Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Exactly the same thing I've always said about, stories of Jesus and stuff like that. I was like, I'm completely fine with a dude in ancient Palestine named Yahshua who was going around preaching the apocalypse. That
Right,
probably happened. I
right,
mean? But did he have, wizard powers to heal people of blindness?
right,
Like there's nothing for me to believe that.
right.
And that's how I basically operate on that end. So yeah, we're pretty much one on one on that. I wanted to ask, as far as when did you ever come out as like have a coming out as an atheist, or did that ever
No,
happen?
not
How'd you
really.
people's not really?
I guess so. And that to me, and I understand that, and I sympathize with those people who have been, or have considered themselves in the closet. The
Mhm.
only reason I never had to come out was because I never felt like I've had to hide it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And again, that I owe that to the environment that I grew up in. Like, even though I was steeped in it,
Mhm.
I was never called a devil or never told I was possessed because I said, no, not really. When somebody said, hey, oh yeah, when, and it's also partially because I treat this when somebody mentions has a religious reference.
Mhm.
Again, I say bless you when somebody sneezes. I don't say, you definitely have the precocious people who want to make a point of them not believing. So when you sneeze, they say science or something like that. Okay, got it, haha. But okay,
Yeah.
it means about the same to me. So I've never really been in a closet simply because of my environment, and I've never I've never had to hide who I was. And I guess it's partially because who I am is not really a staunch anti. I'm not an anti. I'm not an anti-religious person.
Mhm.
I'm completely irreligious
Mhm.
and atheist. But I mean, religion, especially as a personal thing, or again, as interwoven into the fabric of our society in general. That's not to say there's no political and social ramifications that I am staunchly opposed to, or moral or ethical standings I'm opposed to. But just in general,
Mhm.
no. I mean, we pray before food. Okay, if you do that, that's fine. If I'm in your house, yeah, I'll bow my head. Um, if you go to church on this day, if you have your wedding in a church, I'm not going to go and wear a big T-shirt with the atheist A on the front just to prove a point. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. You know.
Gotcha. So you're an atheist, but I'm an anti-theist, and I'm the kind of the same way.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of saying, well, it's kind of a live and let live type of thing, but I am aware of, like how religion can start persecuting people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Eh, And I'm absolutely aware of, how it leads to like bad ideas, you know what I'm saying? So
Correct.
those are things I usually fight against. When I usually go on and do like the debates and stuff like that, that's really just for fun. you know,
Right. Right.
I really move on with my day. It's really just for fun. I just ask them, if prayer works, why does this happen and that happen? But it's just for fun.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's I don't like I don't tend to like go out my way to attack people. I think that's kind of silly. I did go through the angry atheist phase. I know that.
Right.
Have you probably never been through that because you were never really in. But
Right. No, I've never been through the angry atheist, and I've dealt with other, especially black people
mhm,
who've gone through the angry atheist phase, and it's understandable because a lot of them feel as if they were denied something, in
mhm,
which you know collectively we were, and we still are to this day. And whenever you feel that the wool that has had been pulled over your eyes has finally been removed,
mhm,
yeah, it sucks, and there's anger. Uh, I,
mhm,
I have no qualms against people who have those types of feelings. It's how you deal with them. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, and on the other side of that, you have plenty of religious people who go out of their way to shove the religion down your throat.
mhm.
Who you have subway preachers who will wait until you're trapped in a metal tube underground to pull out their Bible and cross and tell you how you're going to hell because you have the audacity to wear mixed fabrics or eat shellfish, or you happen to be in a relationship that's considered non-standard. Uh, but even non-standard to that is contradictory because the standard definition of those relationships is very myriad and really weird in the Bible sometimes. So whether it's you're not married to the opposite gender person you're with, or you're with someone who's not the opposite gender, or you're with someone who maybe doesn't conform to any of those gender identities, or hell, maybe you're with multiple people, right?
Yeah.
They do not hesitate to scream and shout in your face, and then they also try to make laws that
Mhm.
govern your face, your own faith or lack thereof, your body, your movements across and this is not just in the U.S. This is around the world.
Around the
So
world. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I did go through that phase because of just like what you said, I felt like I was lied to. you know?
Right.
So, I did go through that phase where I was like, "Yo, y'all been telling me this is the entire thing my entire life, and now I'm finding out that these are BS." Just like how you brought up before with Jonah and the whale. I'm like, now I'm
Right.
finding out that the whale's throat is only the size of a dinner plate. This couldn't have happened.
Right. Right. It couldn't have gone down there, right? Or he'd
There's,
be dead, especially after 3 days. Ain't no air in there.
no air in
Yeah.
there. He would be dead. So
Right.
it's like, oh, all this time you've been telling me this, and now I feel lied to, and being lied to never feels well. You feel me? So that's cool. Like one thing that I've realized is that when I've speaking to people of like our community or our melanin shade, when we
Mhm.
come out, when we could so-called come out, or people find out that we're not God believers or anything like that, uh I've never seen an instance where we were like ousted from the community, unless you
Right.
were a witness or something like that, or where you were ousted. You know what I'm saying? The family comes sometimes it just says, "Oh, hey, whatever, so what?" You know what I
Right.
mean? But I have met people from the other community. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
says that the people's cut them off, but
Right.
that's very very interesting how each one kind of reacts differently to that. Have you ever met people in within our community, like people who have been kicked out of there, or their friends cut them off or anything like that?
I don't think I have. I don't know.
Mm,
I don't think so. If they have, they never really told me about it. I've read stories, of course, where there
mhm,
are, black people from hyper religious families,
mhm,
very strict upbringings that, hey, once they start to actually question, they are, oh, you're of the devil, blah, blah, blah. You're no longer my child, and that, and, but again, I've seen that for other identities as well. So,
right. Gotcha. We touched a little bit on politics before. Uh, being in the South, yeah, I mean, and black people tend to be very conservative. Yeah, I mean, like, did growing up like academically inclined kind of inform your politics as well, or was it always a very conservative mindset?
well, I guess we have to put the term conservative into perspective.
Mm,
Black people have always the in United States, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party are both considered more conservative than their political counterparts in several other European and even other countries, right? So yes, that's when we say conservative in that sense. Yeah, I mean, black people tend to be more socially conservative,
mm,
but politically uh, Democratic or further left leaning than that, but tend to vote Democrat because that is the only party that, uh, however inadequately, even professes to remotely try to address any of our hundreds of years long list of grievances. That being said,
mm,
I would say I've always been a bit more left leaning.
gotcha.
Um, Maybe less so in my youth, simply because I've always had kind of a live and let live philosophy for the most part. Hey,
Mm,
leave me alone. I won't bother you. However, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more and more left leaning, as it were, more liberal. Uh, Again, in the general political sense, not the political party sense.
mm,
So yeah, I've never really been super conservative. Black people in general, yeah, we are extremely socially conservative within our own communities, where
mm,
we are not, where we are not uh, especially tolerant of at least outward manifestations of these non-aligning identities. And I mean, and it's for survival, right?
mhm,
Good or for better or for worse, it's for survival of the group.
gotcha.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, I've never really been conservative, especially not politically. Um, Religious, yeah, you can do what you want to as far as religion. You can do what you want. Ain't gonna
Mm,
do with me. As
and
soon as
know
you
me.
start telling me, as soon as you start telling me that I can't do this, that, or the other, that's when we have a problem. And then when you start to
Exactly.
try to codify laws that say my very existence is uh is criminalized. It's bad enough being a black man in America, where yeah, our very existence is damn near criminalized, even if it's not codified. It's an unspoken law, right?
Mhm,
And then my lack of religion, you literally want to make it so my children have to read your Bible in class. that they have to pray to your God. And no, I'm not doing that. We're not doing it. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then and that's the thing, like, cause a lot of I know when it came to me, when I started to realize that I don't really believe in this stuff anymore, it started to make me question everything else I believed. Yeah, I
mhm.
mean, because I do know when I was younger, I was very chauvinistic, probably not even probably, I was homophobic, you know what I mean? So it started to
Yeah.
question all that.
So this is what I'll also say about that. I think when I mentioned yeah, I was pretty homophobic when I was a kid, or at least outwardly homophobic because that is the way things were. I
Mhm.
didn't hate gay people, but whenever it was something I didn't like, man, that's gay. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, did I internally have a dislike of people who were homosexual? No, I didn't give a damn. But that is how and I'll give you another example. Lame. When
Mhm.
people call something lame, that's ableistic. That's ableist, right? But
I didn't even realize that.
exactly, I didn't realize that until a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I still every once in a while use the term lame when something is bad. But I mean, those are those types of things that the black community, and even in church, right? You've got everybody has or knows of in some black Baptist church the choir director.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a choir director. Everybody knows one, right?
Uh-huh.
You, I see the look on your face. You may know a couple yourself because
Uh-huh.
we all know, but it's an they're in the closet, but the door is open,
Exactly.
right? So as long as you don't go out and say that you are gay,
Mhm.
ain't no problem. He ain't say he was gay. Of course he's not gay. He ain't like who. What makes you? No, that's his buddy. That's his friend, right? Everybody got that auntie that who has who has a friend that they come over to the barbecue with, to the family function with.
Mhm.
That's a good friend, and they've been friends or roommates for 20 years now.
Mhm.
You got an auntie, got a gold tooth, wears chains, and she wears the Adidas sweats just like your uncles. But yeah, ain't nobody ever said she was gay. So, there's that superficial tolerance of the um there's a superficial tolerance of the condition as long as it's not spoken to
Mhm.
be that actual condition that we are not supposed to tolerate. And I found that to be an odd idiosyncrasy within my own community that it's really fascinating to me. And again, I never really said I was an atheist because that terminology was not something that I was familiar with before my
Mhm.
teenage years in the first place, and it never occurred to me that I had to declare that I don't believe this stuff. Now, if you ask me a specific question, like, "Hey, what do you think we were doing before?" I've had, when I was a kid, we would talk about this type of stuff.
Mhm.
What did you think we were doing before we came to Earth? Nothing. I don't have an answer for that, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
true. I don't have an answer for that. Oh, I think we were with God. Okay. It's never something I would argue about because I never had a framework with which that I felt I needed to argue for or against.
Gotcha. And we've talked about that before when I was a kid too. What were we before we came on Earth? And like for me, I think I was always afraid to say the answer that popped into my head, and the answer was always we didn't exist.
Right.
So we were
Right.
nowhere. We weren't doing anything. We didn't
Right. There
exist.
was nothing there. There was no you to be anywhere.
Be
Right.
anywhere, exactly. But I know if I said that, that would call into question if I actually believed in souls and all that other good
Right.
stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a thing. Let me ask you this. I know for me, you have a wife and kids now, you know what I mean? Congratulations.
Yes.
But
Yep.
I know for me, I have a fiance now, but getting to that spot was extremely difficult.
Right. Right.
Because as black people, we love some Jesus,
We
and
do.
black women, I've restricted myself to black women. I mean, that's just my
I
personal
as
thing.
well.
But I know when I went out there, that always was a problem. It was always a
It
problem.
can be. It can absolutely be a problem.
Yeah, it can actually be a problem. So it's
Right.
like it was always an issue. I know with me and the other fellows I spoke to, it was
Yep.
always a thing where it was like, well, we can't do anything serious, but you can still come over every Saturday.
right.
You know,
We can sin, but
they
we
can
can't get married in sin.
they can't get
Right.
married, exactly. Did you have the
So
similar experience?
I've had only one or two.
Okay, gotcha.
And I think it's again, I think it's partially because I never declare I don't make I don't make a declaration or an introduction of myself as an atheist because it's not that, and religion and religious thinking and theism is not central to my identity in the first place. If I was to put out a Tinder bio or uh what the kids using these days, I don't know, whatever app bio, it wouldn't say atheist in the bio, right?
Got
Unless it has a specific check mark to ask for religious purpose. Whatever. My point being, it's only happened to me maybe once. So before my wife, and this is my second marriage, but before my wife, when I was divorced, I was dating, had a couple dates. One girl, we had, I wouldn't say super serious, but she was officially my girlfriend for a while, and um, she wanted me to pray over some food or something, to lead a prayer over some food at like Pizza Hut or something. We had
mhm,
just gone to Pizza Hut, grabbed a quick bite real quick, and she wanted me to pray over. I said, I'm good. And she insisted. I was like, was it gonna make the food taste better or something?
mhm,
So then she started asking me about all these questions. I let her know, no, I don't believe in any of that. And then she she pressed it, so I gave her the explanation. I was like, well, you know how you don't believe in Thor or Odin or Enkidu or any of that stuff? I don't believe. I believe the same things you believe about Jehovah and Yahweh, Yeshua, Jesus, whatever, right?
mhm.
And she said, "Well, those other ones are made up in the mind." I was like, Okay. Well, if you can show me that yours ain't, then we can have a deeper conversation." And she broke up with me. She broke up with me after that. I was like, okay. So, but
Yeah,
and that was really the only
mhm,
situation. My wife now, she is a general believer.
mhm,
We don't really go to church. We don't, there's those funerals and weddings and all that good stuff. Some of the different holidays that we'll do with her family, who is still relatively religious because they're older and they're black. But she's a general believer, but not. And again, I'm not the guy who's I don't have the big atheist symbol anywhere on me. I don't have it tattooed. I don't listen to Dawkins and Hitchens and stuff all the time because they've made some good points, but they've got their own problems being white, but
yeah,
you know
I know
they've
how
got
that.
their own, right, they've got their own problems being white, but you kind of get what I'm getting at here. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
only happened really once.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, it has happened to me a couple of times, and that's when I started to have say, you know what, I'm just gonna tell them first. You know, because
Right, and that's
I
understandable.
don't. Mhm. Yeah, because
That's
I don't want us to
understandable.
get like 2, 3 weeks down the line, and we're planning more dates and everything like that, and all of a sudden you want to take me to church, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go with whatever. I don't really believe in it, and now it's
Right.
a whole discussion, a whole argument is like, oh,
Now it's a thing. Yep.
now it's a thing. Yeah,
Right.
they feel that it's part of their whole identity, and I'm like, "It's
Right.
not really part of my identity, it's just something I
It's
don't believe
not.
in."
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal, you
Right.
know? Speaking of, Dawkins and all of them, I know you probably heard of the 4 horsemen of new atheism and
Yes.
stuff
Yep.
like that. Yeah. I've always felt that within the, if we can call it that, the quote unquote "atheist community" or
Hmm.
atheist culture, if we can call it that, it's not that, Black people are not a part of it, but we're kind of not visible. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're kinda
Right.
left out. That's part of the reason
Not
why
represented.
exactly. That's kinda actually part of the reason why I started this entire series, you know what I mean?
And I
Because
really appreciate that.
yeah, no problem. Because
Hey, yeah, no, seriously, I will pause right here
mhm,
to stop and say thank you for giving those who are more like us a voice to spread to other people who may be wanting to hear some of those things, and at the very least understand that they're not alone out here.
of course, of course,
Sorry,
yeah.
apologies for interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, 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 no problem. No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. I might even promote some of these videos, because we need more people to see them, you know?
Right.
And the thing is, like I was saying, I don't think we're they know that we exist. but we're not visible. We're not really part of the community. And I've always seen that when I've always like go watch these videos about atheist denominations. They don't really call them denominations, more like organizations or history
Right,
and stuff
right.
like that. Um, when they get into like organizations, they never really mentioned the black ones. Yeah, you see
Of
what I'm
course.
saying? And when it comes to like the four horsemen, I've always felt that there should be representation for the black part of this. You know what I mean? Because those four
Mhm.
guys go on more of the philosophical the philosophical tangent. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that black people aren't philosophical, but we don't really use that to come to our conclusions. You know what I mean? We
Right,
kind of use more of our own experiences to come to that conclusion. I've always felt that there should be more of a visible community for
right.
black atheists. Is like have you ever thought of stuff like that or
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's one of those things that goes to larger society.
mhm,
If we talk about atheist culture, we can talk about it using it as an umbrella term with a capital C for culture. And so
mhm,
that would be the umbrella. And underneath that, just like in any other culture, you have subcultures. You
mhm,
have denominations, subcultures, communities within under
mhm,
that large umbrella. So the Black atheist culture is trying to merge multiple identities where um, we have never had the visibility simply because this isn't our overarching culture
mhm,
as far as American or Western culture in general. That's not ours. So we were never going to get the visibility because the people who run that culture, we don't look like them. So they don't really, they're not really as concerned about seeing us. They want to see things that look like them.
gotcha.
And that that flows down into atheist culture as well, right? So when their culture talks about our culture, they tend to merge as many of our sub identities as possible. So you'll have uh you 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 have the black friend,
Mhm,
right? They may have to embrace multiple, that actor or actress may have to embrace multiple sub facets of black identity into one character, or
mhm,
you're not going to get a black atheist friend, you're not going to get a black gay friend, you're not going to get a black conservative friend, right? Unless you're in that black show. Fresh Prince of
mhm,
Bel Air, you had highly contrasting Will from Philly. You had Carlton. You had, his other cousins. You had his uncle, Uncle Phil, rest in peace, right? You
mhm.
had two different Aunt Vivs, and you had the West Indian Jeffrey, right? So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
had the multiple facets of Black culture right there. But you have to squeeze all of those, or as many as you can get away with, and that are palatable to white culture or Western culture into that. So linking that back to atheism, it's the same way.
Yeah.
They want to see those things that they feel they relate to, which
Mhm,
is the four horsemen, which is Hitchens and crew, Dawkins and crew, right? And their perspectives coming from either science or philosophy, those are based on Western philosophy,
mhm.
right? So when you base those things on Western philosophy, that's where those trends go. And that's how that's going to be. We're not going to be well represented anyway, and especially if it's from a minority within a minority within a minority.
Exactly.
So that's,
Mhm,
do I think we need more? Yes, which is why groups like Black Atheist Coalition, Black Atheists, and without the S on it, these groups are phenomenal, and they allow us to get together and not simply talk about, you know, every day, oh, you guys don't believe in God, right? Okay, no, I still don't either. We'll talk tomorrow, right? And we're able to understand that within that bit of identity, that is what draws us together, but that doesn't have to be what the only thing that keeps us together, right? Because you and I, neither one of us believes in God. You live in Florida, man.
mhm.
I live in Kansas. I live deep within the grain and the Bible Belt, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the fact that we were able to connect, and again, wonders of modern technology notwithstanding, we were able to connect because of the fact that neither one of us believes. But now that we are connected, I doubt that there's that. I doubt that we can't find more things in common, right?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm really interested in growing the visibility. I don't think that's going to happen without without a deliberate shift in the way the overall and overarching cultural umbrella is spread and given to other communities to hold space under, at least, right? And even when we talk about black culture versus the overarching, and again, let's limit it to the United States, western white culture, we're not the only ones competing for that space. We are
Mhm,
the loudest a lot of the times. We are the ones who have been fighting the longest a lot of the times, and
mhm.
we are the ones who are the furthest from whiteness. Blackness was invented as the opposite of whiteness, and you've got everybody else who fits in the middle.
Right.
A lot of the groups who weren't considered white before are now considered white. Irish
Right.
weren't white for a long time.
Irish
Now
and
they are, right?
mhm,
Right, exactly. So now you've got a lot of the lighter skinned Asians and Indians who are being not necessarily considered white, but they are trying to access their proximity to whiteness to leverage for
mhm.
themselves.
Exactly. Why did
Hispanics, yeah, white adjacent. Yeah, they're white adjacent at this point
mhm,
because as the one people who are never going to be there is us, because blackness was invented by them as the antithesis of whiteness. So
mhm.
whatever good stuff is white, all the bad stuff is black.
It's black.
So
Mhm.
dichotomy, and the spectrum exists between the two, but you can't put the points together,
Yeah.
right? So
And you know what's really interesting about that when you bring up Hispanics, down here in Florida, uh, for a while,
mhm,
in the early 90s, Cubans and black people were kind of considered kind of like that. You know what I'm saying?
they
Kind of
were,
the
yeah,
same.
like
Yeah,
Puerto Ricans and black people in New York
exactly. It was we were
in the
considered kind
70s
of
and
the
80s.
same. Exactly, because you know they were from another country. They spoke Spanish.
Yep.
They were ostracized from the WASP society. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Because
right, right.
we still have a lot of WASP down here in Florida. You know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
Protestant, yep.
Yeah, we still have a lot of that down here. You know what I mean? Probably the last stronghold, to tell you the truth.
You're right, right, right.
But when the Cubans started getting older, when things started getting more and more advanced, they started to identify more as white. Like for example, Hialeah back in the early 90s,
Mhm.
if you look at racial demographics, it would say Hispanic. Now, if you check now, Hialeah is considered 95% white.
Right.
But if you go over there, everyone speaks Spanish. Every single
Right,
person.
right, right, right,
You
right.
know, so they're all Cubans, but now they consider themselves white. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So it's like you see that now, that adjacentness they had to get closer
right.
to over
And
the
I
years.
and I think what's just as telling is not that they are not that they consider themselves white, but whiteness allows them to consider themselves white,
Mhm,
because whiteness, again, that general term, is nebulous. It's not directly linked to biology. It's not directly linked to genetics. It's not even directly linked to culture. It can absorb or reject those. It's a semi-permeable membrane, and it can absorb and reject those things that it wants to embolden or empower itself.
mhm,
And it can be granted or bestowed upon other groups that normally would not be considered, as long as you demonstrate your loyalty to it
exactly.
and you are not too far on the spectrum from the last group who's gotten it. And
Mhm,
in doing so, it it bolsters it bolsters whiteness in itself, right? Because birth rates are dropping, which is one of the reasons why Republicans are, trying to make sure that births are forced and that you're working longer and you can't get abortions,
mhm.
etc. But it's kind of a self-defense mechanism for the quote unquote superorganism that describes itself as whiteness.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, yeah, man. Like that's really interesting conversation, man. I like talking about stuff like that. Like talking about stuff,
right. Oh yeah.
demographic shifts, and it's crazy because birth rates are falling, but at the end of the day, that could actually screw all of us
It could.
because you need more young people working if we all get old. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah,
For
it's
the current economic
mhm,
model, the current capitalist economic model, where you want the I guess the one of the the bigger false premises is exponential unlimited growth. Of
mhm,
course, at this point, yeah, you got to have more people to support the group in front of you.
mhm.
It's almost literally a pyramid scheme,
It's a
right?
pyramid. Mhm.
So the
Yep.
base has to continue to grow, and it has to continue to grow forever, or you won't have enough people to support those who are still alive. And the fact we've got medical science that helps people live longer.
Mhm.
So instead of dying, that's one of the reasons they want to raise the retirement rate.
Is that because we're living longer? You know what
We're
I mean?
living longer. So in
Well,
that
well,
current
what's
economic model, you have to, well, you have to. Not that, again, I don't think that's a good thing.
Mhm.
People should not have to toil in the uranium mines or, you know, get coal dust in their damn lungs until they're 70 and then die 2 years afterward.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't believe in that model either. I have heard of something called degrowth, which is like kind of an anarchist idea, but that's
Hmm.
basically scaling back everything that we have. But it's complicated, super complicated.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure how we would even go about that or.
man, look, this is what I'll tell you. And the same thing I tell everybody. In everything that looks good on paper.
Mhm,
Every single capitalism, communism, anarchy, fascism, everything looks good on paper. You can write it all out step by step, and you can tell, well, if we just follow these steps, then everything will be great. And you're right, everything would be perfect if everyone followed those steps exactly as written. But the problem is, you have hundreds of of people in this country alone, somewhere around 8-ish billion on the earth itself. Everybody's not going to be on the same page. And the first casualty of war is the plan.
mhm,
That being said, when you multiply that by millions, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, even 20, 30 people, that's when you start to see those people who rise to the top are the ones who are the worst of the freaking worst.
mhm,
And they take advantage and they do. So is capitalism a great system? No, it's terrible. It's horrible. I wish it would explode tomorrow. I wish everybody would agree to do this perfect thing tomorrow. But as soon as
mhm,
they agree to do that perfect thing, they're going to do somebody is going to arise that's going to do something terrible. Then we abolish that. So again, I don't like capitalism,
mhm.
but it's just I agree with you. Everything is super complicated, and there's no clean way to break from one system to another. As much as I'd love it, there's going to be casualties regardless.
Exactly. You see, this is exactly the reason why atheist culture needs our black part. You know what I mean? Like instead of the four horsemen, we need the black ones, and we'll call it the cookout. You know,
Right, right,
We'll
right,
call
right,
it-
right, right, right.
that's what we need. Yeah, yeah. You feel me? So yeah, I do appreciate all that, man. Lots of good information.
Oh yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's what's gonna go into the next question I was gonna ask you. It's probably gonna be the last one before we wrap it up.
All right.
Um, Usually within our I see there's two minds when it comes to creating kind of a community for black atheists. There's the mind of that we need to start being vocal, we need to start being out there. We need to start being people like Matt Dillahunty and all of them going
Right,
out there doing shows, debating, going out to mega churches with your desk saying God doesn't exist, change my mind, and debating pastors and
right,
stuff
right,
like
right, right, right.
there's people who are of that mind, and there are people who are of the mind of, several friends that I have that says, you know what, leave that to them. Let's us build our own, safe community because we don't have that. So let's build that up first and leave all the activism to, what they do. I'm of the mind that we could walk and chew gum. We don't have to be as aggressive as those guys.
I agree.
Yeah,
Okay, no, keep going, keep going. Sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Exactly. I'm saying I'm like we don't have to be as aggressive as those guys, and those guys give out great information. I still follow Aaron Raw and Matt Dillahunty to this
Yeah,
day. You know
absolutely.
what I'm saying? So they give great information, so I still follow them, and I don't think it should be left up to them because that's how we got into a situation where we're not visible anymore. So I
Right.
definitely think that we should have those who do have the expertise to make themselves visible, but also those who want to build a community to build that safe community, and we can all work together. I'm a walking true gum. You agree with
Right.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Um, I do think that should we be more vocal? Yeah, we should be more vocal. Um, I think that we should. I think first and foremost, we have to be able to have a base to reach out from.
Hmm.
In military strategy, it would be considered the ink spot effect. You have to build up and galvanize a community to stand stalwart, to stand fast. That is building those atheist communities. But simultaneously, you start to go and you start to discuss these things with other communities, and you're vocal and you galvanize them too. And like the spreading of ink from a pen that's ink, a quill pen whose ink has been flicked on a page, those ink spots start to grow. Now, Again, that is a perfect plan on paper. However, there are active factions that work against those types of things, which we have to be cognizant of. But yeah, I'm in full agreement. Regardless of who is against us, we have to be A for ourselves and B for others.
Gotcha, man. All right, Eddie. I really appreciate you coming out here and talking to us.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
do you have any socials or businesses that you would like to promote? I'll go ahead and tag them into this video when
I've
you
got nothing for now, but if please contact me anytime, man. I'm here to talk.
got you. And if y'all hear his voice, he could be a great voice actor. So definitely get at him for that. You know what I mean? If we need a new Mufasa, there you go.
Man, look, I'll tell you. Speaking of religion, this is a my first wife, my second oldest daughter, um, Jasmine, my little pork
Mm,
chop. We used to watch. That was about she was 2 or 3 when the Prince of Egypt came out.
I still love that movie.
I love that movie.
Mm,
Again, I never believed any of that stuff, but I love the movie. And me and her used to sing "Through Heaven's Eyes," right? Where
mm,
what's it? Yeah, I still love it, man. I do lots of karaoke.
mm,
I've been told I should get into voice acting or radio. I
mm.
definitely have the face for radio, but it's nothing that's been on my radar. But I do some voice gigs here and there. So
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, and the thing is with when it comes to like biblical stories, I've always told them like, yo, there's a lot of good stories we could take from this. Like we take a lot of things from like ancient Greek and ancient Chinese.
mhm,
We just haven't gone into African, which I think we should do.
we
There's a lot
really
of African stories that could create fantastic fantasy.
right,
Fantastic
right,
fantasy. But like biblical stories, stuff like the Tower of Babel, Noah's Ark, Jonah,
yeah,
Sodom and Gomorrah, these can make fantastic stories.
yep,
Like look at Prince of Egypt.
exactly.
Amazing
I
story.
love that story.
Love that story. I love the song. I still love the Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey song.
Oh
Still one
yeah,
of the
miracles. Yeah,
yeah, Miracles is
my
still a
wife
great
sings
song.
too. She sings that when I sing through Heaven's Eyes because I'm a
Yeah,
more bass baritone.
gotcha. But I do appreciate you. I'm gonna see if anyone can get you into voice acting or something like that. That voice
Right.
is amazing, bro. It's
I
great.
appreciate it. Thank you.
I bet, but I do appreciate you, and this will drop soon. I will tell you when it drops. All right,
Sounds good. Thank you. Really appreciate your time, man.
no problem. And you guys have a wonderful day. Stay tuned.
Thanks.